Well, another game presentation, another year without Ace Attorney 7. So instead, we'll be ranking every remaster that's released for Ace Attorney. However, instead of the games themselves, we'll be judging them based upon the quality of the remake itself. That being the improvements to gameplay, graphics, quality of life, bonus content, and any other additions. And to make things simple, we'll be only looking at the latest 4 releases. So none of the DS, iOS, WiiWare, or any of the other remasters that specifically the Wright trilogy received. Only the multi-platform collection releases. And apologies Wright Late to Truthers, I wanted to wait for its remaster, but I grew tired of waiting. Instead, I'm going to be including Ghost Trick because this is my video and I can. We all got that? Cool, because coming in dead last is the original Wright trilogy. Probably the first and only time the original trilogy is objectively the worst between all of the games. Because, yeah, this remaster isn't aging too well. For essentially being the game to popularize visual novels in the West, this remaster is lacking most of the essential things for any visual novel. There's no autoplay or story mode, no chat history, 2 very essential elements for any visual novel, and especially a murder mystery one. And for someone like, I don't know, a video editor has to capture their gameplay footage to edit into their videos, then the biggest grievance has been not having an easy chapter and section selection. Keep in mind, I had to hack in a save just to be able to select which case I wanted to play without having to replay 70 hours of the original trilogy on the Steam version I got for my birthday. Thanks, sis. It's funny, as the Wright trilogy is often the most memed for being the game constantly re-released on all platforms and soon to be the Samsung smart fridge. Yet this version of it is from 2014. 3 whole Ace Attorney games have been released since the last true remaster of the OG trilogy. But it's not all bad. I think we take for granted having access to the Wright trilogy in high quality on all platforms. At the time of release, a lot of people were complaining about the HD sprites compared to the pixel ones, but now it's hard to imagine these characters without them. And the game itself runs smoothly. Well, besides one case. This remaster may be the only one that actively makes a case worse. Yep, of course we're talking about Rise from the Ashes. A lot of this case was built around the technology for the Nintendo DS, and already at the time there were a lot of finicky mechanics. But it was their first time using new, janky technology. Surely after a decade they would improve those mechanics in the remaster. Surely, right? Yeah, no, they did not. All the forensics mechanics are as monotonous as they were a decade prior, whether it's too sensitive, too particular, or just too long. Or just small inconveniences like having to sit through the entirety of the security footage when finding or presenting a contradiction to, of course, the Blue Badger. It's a shame as all of these elements actively hold back Rise from the Ashes from being a phenomenal case, instead resulting in it being a bloated and poorly paced mess. And generally I would like to see minor tweaks and changes to all of the cases. Whether it's making some presentable evidence more lenient or reducing or retconning things that straight up haven't aged that well. It is part of the reason I'm making this video to push Capcom to finally update their original trilogy to have those modern quality of life features like in future remasters. No, it's because I need a quick video to make. I'm not that altruistic. But eventually when it comes out for the Switch 2, Switch 3, Nintendo Smart Toaster, I hope they can bring all these minor features for a new generation of Ace Attorney fans to have the best and smoothest experience they can have. Which, speaking of, up next with a significant leap in quality, we have the Ghost Trick remaster. And once again, this is about the quality of the remake itself, not the game underneath. Because Ghost Trick is on a whole nother level compared to Ace Attorney. This remaster literally could have given me 1500 viruses, blown up my computer, and shot my dad in an elevator, and I would still give it 5 stars. But luckily, it's a rather good remaster. One that was sprung thanks to fan demand and also the iOS versions just sucking. Which means, if we make enough ruckus, Capcom might finally release Ace Attorney 7. One of the biggest problems the team faced was that Ghost Trick was so tailored for the Nintendo DS, with a lot of the gimmicks, gameplay, and visuals reliant on capitalizing upon the 2-display touchscreen setup. One of the major reasons it became a cult classic for so many years. So a big concern was how would they translate those elements over to modern devices? And they accomplished it seamlessly. The gameplay and mechanics feel natural, allowing for a fully accessible experience that doesn't impede upon the puzzles or narrative like in Rise from the Ashes. Same thing with the graphics, still retain the unique art style and direction of the models, sprites, and environments. I've always loved the style of Ghost Trick, and seeing them look so fantastic in high definition was an added bonus. And there are a lot of other additions. They rearranged the entirety of the soundtrack, which I'm sorry but sounds significantly better than the originals in my opinion. They even have a fun little jukebox section which you can listen to them. There's also bonus puzzles and a lot of concept art and illustrations that the art directors and even Shu Takumi himself made while designing the game. And I'm a sucker for behind the scenes and concept art for games, so I love seeing these. But what keeps the Ghost Trick remaster this low isn't that it's a bad remake. It's just future remakes add way more for player customability and quality of life. The UI is rather rudimentary, and I'm not the biggest fan of the smaller screen, though it's kind of fun to change the border illustrations. That's a fun little bit of customization. But we're also limited to just one save, which works for Ghost Trick, but minuscule compared to the up to 20 we get in future games. So overall, Ghost Trick's remaster is incredibly great for an even more phenomenal game. Just the generally simple nature of it limited in comparison to the next 3 titans. Anyways, if you haven't already, stop this video right now and go play Ghost Trick. I'm serious, just literally go play Ghost Trick. Alright, so with that out of the way, in third place, I'm going to be putting the Investigations collection. Yet another significant leap in quality. As aforementioned, the next 3 are all at the pinnacle of what you would want out of a remaster. And there's so much to love about the Investigations collection, with it being the remaster to officially localize the final game yet to be translated, Investigations 2 Prosecutor's Gambit, which as someone who's experienced it initially through a fan translation as Prosecutor's Path, man, they really cooked with a new title. In fact, I grew to like a lot of the new names, and especially the case titles. But Raymond Shields, Justine Courtney, and Sebastian the Best will forever be missed over Eustace. I'm sorry, Eustace, and anyone's named Eustace. Speaking of which, I remember initially clowning on the HE chibi sprites mostly just for Edward's Apollo-ass forehead. But reading how art director Hiromichi Iwasaki and the team worked to translate the initial sprites into a brand new HE style was admirable. There was so much planning to basically redraw each sprite from scratch, and they somehow went from this to this, including adding extra frames, overshoots, anticipation, all the 12 principles of animation, just to make these chibi little guys feel alive. In fact, they cared about every single detail they could. They made new models, UI, shadows. Apparently they argued about adding toilet paper or not for a while. And having to translate a 4x3 pixelated background into a 16:9 high definition format couldn't have been easy. Seriously, give these localization articles a read. It generally has some fascinating stuff that gives you a much better perspective to the work that goes into these remasters, besides direct port go burr. And you can tell all that effort is translated immaculately. The HD environments and characters feel not just high quality, but incredibly vibrant, and having these high quality chibis roam around these well mapped and drawn investigation scenes helps a lot with the gameplay, making it easier to know where to look and investigate. This is also the first game so far that has all the key quality of life features like a history, autoplay, story mode, toggling screen flashes and shakes. I especially like the chapter select with the icons showing confrontation, puzzle, and investigation scenes. And the UI in general is very nice. Obviously with this being the latest release, this wasn't their first rodeo, but the Edgeworth Maroon with the vintage gold, sharp angles, and the chessboard patterning throughout makes it really feel like Edgeworth's game. I think this may be my favorite UI aesthetically. And don't forget all the extra flavor pieces, like the slideshow based on your latest save, or the icons and illustrations in the gallery. Speaking of, the gallery is overall pretty nice, with in-game illustrations, character sprites and animations, a music player to play the absolute bangers that is the Investigations music. There's also brand new arranged tracks, which makes it feel even more like a Street Fighter game. Plus even more bonus arrangements for the official orchestra renditions to new ones I never knew about until this collection released. So like Edgeworth and his bank account, this collection is stacked. But I do have one gripe, and it's very personal. So the character compendium, right? Super cool and awesome, you get to see all your favorite characters and all their animations small and big. That's great. But I'm an editor, and for a certain Edgeworth related video, I had to get the HD sprites somewhere. So obviously I used a compendium. But you see what may be an issue here. Yeah, the background is beige! It's not as simple as keying out the background, as it just happens to be the most similar color to every character's skin tone. So I had to instead individually record, take it to After Effects, screenshot every frame, manually cut out the background, and re-export it as a PNG sequence. And I did this for several characters, including Edgeworth and his 15 different animations. And the worst part is, the compendium didn't even have all the animations I needed, so I have to go into the case, find the animation. But besides that, this remaster, it's pretty good. But you know what's even better? The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. The first of the modern remasters, and man, this is somehow even more packed in an investigations collection. This is probably the most ambitious remaster, with them having to bring over a relatively unknown Ace Attorney spin-off only localized for smartphones, and also its subsequent sequel that never got localized, not even by fans yet. A lot seemingly due to the initial poor reception of the first game, which baffles me. But a once hidden gem that many would never be able to fully experience was suddenly brought to the limelight. And they faced a lot of unique challenges, like not even being able to use Sherlock Holmes' name because of copyright. So they just did the most Ace Attorney thing, and Sherlock Holmes was born. But the localization had to not only translate the games, but translate a lot of the oriental and cultural aspects due to a central theme of them being the drastic differences between the East and the West, in terms of the culture, manner of speech, and the interaction between the two. There were even talks to remove that aspect of the text entirely, but they chose to go the extra mile and include it anyway. And despite apparent complaints about it being too confusing to comprehend, I'm personally forever grateful they did this. Just the localization alone adds so much with the narrative, world building, and characters that without it, it would just make the story worse. And with the Great Ace Attorney easily having the best world building in the series, it would be such a detriment to lose that aspect of it. They even casted British-Japanese voice actors for Ryunosuke, Kazuma, and Suzuto, which, while maybe a little confusing narratively, who really cares when the sentiment and opportunity alone makes it worth it? As for the remaster itself, while there's some aspects in terms of the UI they've done better in future games, with this being their first, it showed a huge step up from the original trilogy by having those visual novel necessities, proving that they are aware of the importance of those quality of life features. Plus the Victorian aesthetic with the beveled buttons and borders, the more oldish font to the text, even the ribbon animation for the logo I really do love. And the evolving background being the location of your latest save is a nice touch. And may I say that the 3D elements of the Great Ace Attorney were translated incredibly? I think these environments and backgrounds are the best looking and most immersive ones in the series. There's so much depth and movement to these worlds, it's like the backgrounds are in of itself their own character. Speaking of the characters, their models break the trend of the 3D models being stiff and rigid by having these fluid and dynamic poses and animations that push the limits of how animated a 3D model can behave. Same thing with the objects in their models. There's so much personality to them that it makes you want to investigate and look deeper into them. I know these are aspects from the originals, but they were translated so well, and possibly even tinkered and enhanced when going between platforms. And it would be a crime to not at least mention their quality. The new gameplay mechanics as well, like the jury or dance and deduction, feel very nice to play. Besides some kind of clunky 3D deduction moments, there's nothing really much to say besides they run rather smoothly and are easily comprehensible. The only true complaint I'm surprised by is the lack of a sound and music slider, just it being an on and off switch. But then again, if you know the Great Ace Attorney's music, you are never touching this button ever. But the true gem comes with the special contents, as this area is packed. They have old and unused music and voice lines, special extra episodes of our characters casually interacting, special movies of Suzuto facing off against Sholmes or Ryunosuke against Phoenix? You even have access to the characters' DLC outfits, or can just hear the characters work their vocal chops, which it's still a bit strange seeing our Ace Attorney characters actually talk. The only thing I would add would be a gallery of the anime and 3D cutscenes as well as in-game illustrations, but they do have a lot of secret and extra illustrations. However, the real reason I put the Great Ace Attorney over the Investigations collection was that within the gallery and the music, we actually get to read the whole design and thought process the team put into creating these elements. I mentioned that I'm a big nerd when it comes to this stuff, and reading Nuri break down every aspect he put into designing all of the concept art and the process of creating every aspect of each character, it's a joy to go through all of it. Being able to see the personality and the love and the care and how much fun the designers put into the game through the music, through the characters, narrative, the localization even, just adds so much to the enjoyment of the game. And I find it a shame that this happens to be the only one out of all of them that features the directors breaking down the game like this. It's one thing to go through all of the concept art, it's another to hear what the designers put into making all of it that I really do appreciate about this collection. Reading through all the articles and the investment Takumi, Makino, and everyone who helped make this game had, and how much they want to see it succeed, is something you definitely see bleed through into the quality of the game. Especially with all the trials and tribulations the team faced, with it being deemed a commercial failure. So going the extra mile to recognize those who helped bring this masterpiece of a narrative and video game to life is why I place it so high at number 2. Yet, it's by far not even the best remake. Because that honor obviously has to go to the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy. This one remaster is the absolute peak of all of the collections. Literally everything you could need in a visual novel remaster, this collection has and then some. Arguably this was the most straightforward port of the series, with the Apollo Justice HD sprites already existing for phones in 2016 and just porting and upscaling models in Dual Destinies and Spirited Justice. But they still had to modernize the format and UI for modern consoles and PCs, whilst also streamlining the 3 games together through localization and audio changes. They even updated Phoenix's voice in Apollo Justice to match a new voice actor in the later 3DS games. I will say that not everything in this is perfect. There was some odd scaling between the sprites and backgrounds of Apollo Justice. Serenade has some unskippable video moments, though not nearly as monotonous. And I think the new mechanics like the divination seance are just kind of passable. They aren't broken, convoluted messes by any means. If anything, they are rather understandable and easy to maneuver around. It's more so the mechanics themselves being hit or miss than the UI or remaster executing it poorly. But what makes the Apollo Justice Trilogy remarkable is the amount of customability and additional features they gifted to us. You can customize the selection screen and its backgrounds and music, change the character outfits to their DLC unlocks. They have an expansive gallery and concept art stage with the anime episodes, character sheets, and even background concept art and mood boards that I've never seen before till this release. They even have a music hall with every single song in the trilogy, orchestra remakes, and 2 custom songs for the collection. All you can favorite, shuffle, and even make playlists for. Because who needs Spotify when you got the Ace Attorney Auditorium? But there's one addition that's easily the best feature and my favorite thing Ace Attorney has added in remakes. One section that I'm still floored was even thought of, let alone included. The animation studio alone is the sole reason I placed the Apollo Justice Trilogy in first. The ability to select any character in the trilogy and almost any animation they have and place them in any background or environment including blue and green screens is massive. And I mean literally any character and animation you can select. It really seemed like they wanted to flex the effort they put into all the animations, and I can't blame them. Especially if it means I have easy access to edit in any animation I want into my videos. There are some weird restrictions like locking some poses for specific types of backgrounds, or large animations like the breakdowns, which are the ones I especially wanted green screened, you simply can't. Which is a bummer for label breakdown truthers like myself, but I can't complain too much as this feature existing alone is more than I ever anticipated. I'll just get someone to hack into models and animations for them myself. And I'm not sure if I'm wrong, but when watching the trailer, I immediately thought that this would be a whole custom case creator similar to those objecting outlaws you would see back in the day. Or possibly even a live service Ace Attorney lobby, but I guess that may be a little too ambitious. Once again, I can't complain too much, I can't get too greedy, otherwise Ace Attorney 7 will never come out. But I am curious as to if they had even bigger plans for this feature, and would it be possible to make a limitless Ace Attorney creator native to this collection. But there is so much to love about the Apollo Justice Trilogy. It manages to piece together a rather disjointed trilogy and really expands it to at least feel like a collective narrative. With an endless list of features and bonus content that it really does feel like a grand, all-encompassing package. Just please let me skim through the videos. Please. But there's the list. Throughout writing this script, I realized I had way more to talk about these remasters than I anticipated. But I also gained a new perspective as to how much care these developers put into Ace Attorney. It's not as simple as recoding a game for a new platform. Instead, there's much more to consider, especially when upscaling all the graphics or translating an entirely unlocalized game. In an era where so many remakes are lazy, buggy, nostalgia-bait cash grabs, and let's be honest, Ace Attorney isn't that much better in terms of stealing my money, these remakes put in the extra effort to highlight all the talent and passion that were invested into making and remastering these games. And in turn bringing over an entirely new audience in a modern, accessible format, which is what these remakes are for. I don't know how popular Ace Attorney would be if the original Phoenix Wright trilogy wasn't ported to literally every piece of technology known to man. That was my own introduction to the series, let alone all the more obscure titles, including the ones that never left Japan. To highlight these spectacular games for new players, whilst bringing back old fans with new content, modernized visuals, and additional features, is what these remakes are for. It's kind of exciting for a series that at this moment is kind of void of things to be excited for. It makes me wonder if even more obscure properties like the Layton collab or, I don't know, the pachinko gambling machines will be ported anytime soon. And because of the wavering levels of the quality of life and bonus features between all of the games, if they are considering a massive collection of them to include all of the best features, but more so to squeeze an extra $100 so out of my wallet. Whatever satiates us fans for the time being, instead of making Ace Attorney 7, I guess.
Your entire life. Jerry, bring over the feed hose ASAP. The boy's hungry.